The chamber was silent except for the soft hum of translation devices. Ambassador Claire Morrison stood at the center platform, her hands trembling as she held the data tablet. Around her, dozens of alien species watched from their elevated seats. Some had multiple eyes, others had scales or fur, but all of them looked down at her with the same expression. They did not care. Claire took a deep breath and activated the holographic display. Images filled the air above her head. Burning buildings. Scorched earth. Bodies of men, women, and children scattered across what used to be a peaceful colony. New Portland had been home to 40,000 humans. Now it was a graveyard. Honorable Council members, Claire said, her voice steady despite the pain in her chest. This attack happened 6 days ago. The Zarkan Empire sent 12 warships to New Portland. They bombarded the colony from orbit for 3 hours. There were no military installations there. No weapons. Just families trying to build a new life. She paused, looking at each council member. 40,000 people are dead. Most of them were children. Councillor Vex Thor, the Zarkan representative, stood up. His reptilian face showed no emotion. The human colony was built in disputed territory. We sent warnings. They ignored them. That's a lie. Claire's voice rose. We have records of every communication. New Portland was established 60 years ago with full council approval. Your empire wanted the mineral deposits under the colony. So you killed everyone to take it. High Arbitrator Quintala clicked her mandibles together, a sign of impatience. Her insectoid features reflected the light from the hologram. Ambassador Morrison, this council has reviewed your complaint. While the loss of life is unfortunate, this appears to be a border dispute between 2 member species. We cannot intervene in such matters. Claire felt her heart sink. Border dispute? They murdered 40,000 civilians. This is the 5th colony they've attacked in 2 years. How many humans have to die before you act? The Council's decision is final, Quintala said. We suggest both parties negotiate a peaceful settlement. From the observation deck high above the chamber, Admiral Jacob Pierce watched the proceedings. His jaw was clenched so tight it hurt. He had served in the human fleet for 30 years, and for 30 years he had followed orders to keep the peace. He had believed in the Galactic Council. He had believed that civilization meant justice. He had been wrong. Claire looked up at the observation deck. Even from that distance, Pierce could see the tears streaming down her face. She gave him a small nod. It was time. Then humanity withdraws from this council, Claire said quietly. Effective immediately. The chamber erupted in noise. Aliens chittered, roared, and buzzed in their various languages. Quintala slammed her gavel down. Ambassador Morrison, you cannot simply withdraw. There are treaties, agreements, trade deals. All void as of this moment, Claire said. She straightened her shoulders and looked directly at Vex Thor. And we have one more announcement. Admiral Pierce activated his communicator. His message went out on all frequencies, broadcast to every corner of known space. This is Admiral Jacob Pierce of the human fleet. As of this moment, humanity officially declares war on the Zarkan Empire. We have tried diplomacy. We have tried justice. We have tried peace. You have answered with blood and fire. He paused, watching as the council chamber descended into chaos below. The Zarkan Empire will answer for their crimes. This is not a threat. This is a promise. Any species that aids the Zarkans will be considered hostile. Any species that stands aside will be left in peace. This war ends when justice is served. Vex Thor laughed, a harsh rasping sound. Foolish humans. You have no military. You have been traders and explorers for decades. You disbanded most of your warships. What will you fight with? Trade vessels. Admiral Pierce smiled, but there was no humor in it. You're about to find out. He cut the transmission and turned away from the window. Behind him, Claire was already leaving the chamber floor, flanked by human security officers. The other ambassadors were shouting questions, making demands, but she ignored them all. In orbit around the station, 3 human ships that had been waiting quietly powered up their engines. They looked old, almost primitive compared to the sleek vessels of other species. But appearances were deceiving. Pierce walked to the docking bay where his ship waited. The crew snapped to attention as he entered. "Set course for Earth," he ordered. "And send the activation codes to all hidden shipyards. Project Righteous Fury is now operational." "Yes, sir," his communications officer replied. "Should I notify Fleet Command that we're going to war?" Pierce looked out the viewport at the stars beyond. Somewhere out there, the Zarkans thought they had won. They thought humans were weak. "Fleet Command already knows," he said quietly. "They've been preparing for this day for 20 years. Now the galaxy will learn why humans stopped fighting each other. We were saving our strength for something that mattered." The ship detached from the station and jumped to faster-than-light speed. Behind them, the Galactic Council scrambled to understand what had just happened. They would figure it out soon enough. Humanity had crossed a line they could never uncross. The age of human patience was over. The age of human fury had begun. The Zarkan war room was filled with confident laughter. Commander Vex Thor studied the tactical display showing the Epsilon Reach system. His fleet of 60 warships was positioned perfectly. The humans were coming with only 12 vessels. It would be a massacre. "They actually think they can fight us," one of his officers said, baring his fangs in amusement. "Humans have been peaceful merchants for generations. They don't even remember how to wage war." Vex Thor nodded. "This will be quick. We destroy their fleet, then we take 3 more of their colonies. The Council won't stop us. They never do." Across the galaxy, the Galactic Council was holding an emergency session. High Arbitrator Quintala addressed the gathered representatives. "The humans have made a foolish decision. Our intelligence shows they decommissioned most of their military vessels decades ago. The Zarkan Empire will crush them within weeks." "Perhaps we should intervene," suggested a delegate from the Prothean Assembly. "Before this gets worse." "Intervene on whose behalf?" Quintala replied. "The humans chose war. Let them learn the consequences. The Zarkans have the 3rd largest fleet in known space." What none of them knew was that humans had been very busy for the past 20 years. Captain Daniel Hayes stood on the bridge of the warship Vengeance. Around him, his crew worked quietly at their stations. Lieutenant Sophie Grant monitored the tactical display, her fingers flying across her console. "Enemy fleet detected," Sophie reported. 60 Zarkan vessels. They're moving to intercept us." "Good," Daniel said calmly. "That's exactly what we want. Are the other ships ready?" "All 11 vessels report ready, sir. Weapons charged and locked." Daniel smiled. The Vengeance looked like an old cargo hauler from the outside. Outdated hull design, slow engine configuration, primitive sensor arrays. That was intentional. The Zarkans had been watching human ship designs for decades through their spy networks. They thought they knew everything about human capabilities. They were about to learn otherwise. "Incoming transmission from the Zarkan commander," the communications officer announced. "Put it through," Daniel said. Vex Thor's reptilian face appeared on the screen. "Human vessel, you are outnumbered 5 to 1. Surrender now and we will spare your lives. You will be prisoners, but you will live." "That's very generous," Daniel replied. "But I have a counter-offer. You surrender to us, and we'll spare your lives." Vex Thor laughed so hard his whole body shook. "Arrogant mammals. You're about to die. All of you." He cut the transmission. "Well, we tried," Daniel said. "Sophie, drop the disguises and show them what we really are." All 12 human ships suddenly changed. Outer hull panels fell away, revealing armored plating underneath. Hidden weapon ports opened. Engine signatures jumped from weak civilian levels to military-grade power. In 5 seconds, the Zarkan fleet found itself facing vessels they didn't recognize. "What is this?" Vex Thor shouted at his sensor operator. "Sir, their power readings just increased by 400%. I'm detecting weapon systems we've never seen before." "Sir, those aren't cargo ships." "All vessels, open fire." Vex Thor ordered. "Kill them now." The Zarkan fleet unleashed a wave of plasma torpedoes and particle beams. It was enough firepower to destroy a small moon. But the human ships were already moving. They scattered in a pattern that seemed random but was perfectly coordinated. Most of the Zarkan weapons hit empty space. "Return fire," Daniel ordered quietly. The Vengeance fired its railguns. Solid metal projectiles accelerated to a fraction of light speed. They hit the Zarkan shields and punched straight through. 3 Zarkan ships exploded in the first volley. The other human ships fired their own weapons. Plasma torpedoes with guidance systems far more advanced than anything the Zarkans possessed. Energy beams that could slice through armor like paper. In 30 seconds, 15 Zarkan ships were destroyed. "Impossible!" Vex Thor screamed. "All ships, evasive maneuvers. Regroup and concentrate fire." But the human ships were faster. They moved like dancers, always one step ahead of the Zarkan weapons. Sophie's fingers never stopped moving as she coordinated targeting data across the entire human fleet. Every ship knew where every other ship was. Every shot was calculated for maximum damage. The battle lasted 18 minutes. When it was over, 36 Zarkan ships were destroyed. 15 more were badly damaged and leaking atmosphere. Only 9 escaped intact, running for their lives back to Zarkan space. The human fleet had lost 0 ships. The Vengeance had a few scorch marks on its hull. That was all. Vex Thor sat in his command chair, staring at the sensor display in disbelief. More than 60% of his fleet was gone. The humans had barely been scratched. "How?" he whispered. Daniel opened a channel to the retreating Zarkan ships. "Go home. Tell your empire what happened here. Tell them that humans remember how to fight. We just chose not to. But you took that choice away when you murdered 40,000 civilians." He paused, letting his words sink in. "This is just the beginning. We're coming for you. All of you." The transmission ended. The human fleet regrouped and jumped to their next target. Behind them, debris from Zarkan ships floated in the darkness of space. Across the galaxy, every major power received the sensor recordings from the battle. In council chambers, war rooms, and government buildings, aliens watched the footage in stunned silence. The humans hadn't just won. They had dominated. The species that had been peaceful traders and explorers for generations had revealed themselves as the most dangerous military force anyone had ever seen. High Arbitrator Quintala watched the recording 3 times. Then she looked at her advisors. "What have we done?" she asked quietly. Nobody had an answer. General Nathan Cross stood in the command center deep beneath Earth's surface. Around him, holographic displays showed the entire theater of war. Red icons marked Zarkan positions. Blue icons showed human forces. There were far more blue icons than anyone had expected. President Victoria Lang entered the room, flanked by her security detail. Nathan turned and saluted. "Madam President, Operation Righteous Fury is ready to begin." "How many ships do we have?" Victoria asked. 240 warships ready for immediate deployment. Another 300 completing final preparations in hidden shipyards throughout human space. Nathan pulled up a star chart. "We've been building these vessels for 20 years, Madam President. Ever since our intelligence services discovered the Galactic Council knew about Zarkan expansion plans and chose to do nothing." Victoria stared at the display. 20 years of secret construction. 20 years of pretending to be peaceful traders while we prepared for this day. "Do you think we did the right thing, Nathan?" "We tried peace," Nathan replied. "We followed their laws. We trusted their justice system. They repaid us with dead children." "Yes, Madam President, we did the right thing." Victoria nodded slowly. "Then give the order. Show them what happens when you push humanity too far." Nathan activated the fleet-wide communication system. "All task forces, this is Supreme Command. Operation Righteous Fury is now active. Execute your assignments. Remember, military targets only. We are not the enemy they think we are. We are better." Across human space, massive shipyards that had been disguised as asteroid mining facilities opened their doors. Warships that had been hidden in the shadows of gas giants powered up their engines. Fleets that had been waiting for this moment began to move. The Zarkan Empire had 15 major military installations spread across their territory. At exactly the same moment, human forces appeared at 12 of them. The attacks were surgical and devastating. Defense stations that had stood for centuries were reduced to rubble in minutes. Zarkan commanders barely had time to send distress calls before their facilities were destroyed. Agent Kyle Richmond led a team of human operatives deep inside Zarkan space. They moved through the darkness between stars, their ships running silent and cold. Kyle had been doing this kind of work for 15 years. He knew the Zarkan supply routes better than most Zarkans did. "Target ahead," his pilot whispered. "Fuel depot for their 4th fleet." "Take us in close," Kyle ordered. His team prepared the charges. They wouldn't destroy the depot. That would kill too many civilians working there. Instead, they would sabotage it so thoroughly it would take months to repair. No fuel meant the Zarkan 4th Fleet was grounded. They were in and out in 20 minutes. The Zarkans never knew humans had been there until their systems started failing. In the Galactic Council chambers, panic was spreading. The Zarkan ambassador was shouting for help. "The humans are attacking us on 12 fronts simultaneously. They have hundreds of ships. You must intervene." "Where did they get so many vessels?" Quintala demanded. "Our intelligence said they had no military fleet." "Your intelligence was wrong," Ambassador Claire Morrison said calmly. She had returned to the Council as an observer, not a member. "We've been building these ships since we first joined your Council. We saw how the galaxy really works. Peace only exists when you're strong enough to defend it." "You lied to us," the Zarkan ambassador hissed. "No," Claire replied. "We simply didn't tell you everything. Just like you didn't tell us you were planning to expand into human territory. Just like the Council didn't tell us they knew about your plans all along." The chamber went silent. Every ambassador suddenly found something else to look at. Claire continued. "We found the communications. The secret meetings. The Council knew the Zarkans wanted human colonies. They knew attacks were coming. And they decided to allow it because it didn't affect them. Well, now it affects everyone." President Victoria Lang's face appeared on every screen in the Council chamber. She looked tired but determined. "People of the galaxy, I address you not as Council members but as civilized beings. For 80 years, humanity has been part of your community. We have traded fairly. We have helped those in need. We have followed your laws." She paused. "But your laws failed us. Your justice system failed us. 40,000 of our people died, and you called it a border dispute. So we are reminded of something our ancestors knew. We don't want to conquer. We don't want an empire. But we will never again rely on others for our protection." The president's expression hardened. "This war will end when the Zarkan Empire answers for their crimes. Any species that aids them will be considered hostile. We don't want more enemies. But we're not afraid of them either." 3 Zarkan colony worlds saw human fleets appear in orbit. The local governors expected bombardment. Instead, they received a message. Surrender peacefully and no one would be harmed. Resist and only military targets would be hit. The governors, seeing what had happened to their military installations, chose survival. All 3 colonies surrendered without firing a shot. The galaxy was learning a lesson they should have known already. Humans had spent thousands of years fighting each other. They had invented weapons that could destroy entire worlds. They had waged wars that killed millions. And then they had stopped. Not because they couldn't fight anymore, but because they chose peace. But peace was a choice. And the galaxy had made them choose differently. Kyle Richmond and his team struck another supply depot. Human fleets pushed deeper into Zarkan territory. General Nathan Cross watched his tactical displays and allowed himself a grim smile. The Zarkan Empire had started this war. Humanity would finish it. On Earth, in the hidden command center, President Lang sat alone for a moment. She thought about the 40,000 dead. She thought about the children who would never grow up. And she made a silent promise to them. This would never happen again. Never. Admiral Jacob Pierce stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the tactical display. His fleet had pushed deep into Zarkan territory, taking system after system. But something was different now. The Zarkans were no longer just defending. They were retreating. Running. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission," his communications officer reported. "It's from Counselor Vex Thor. He says it's urgent." Jacob raised an eyebrow. The same Vex Thor who laughed at Ambassador Morrison? Put him through. The reptilian face that appeared on screen looked nothing like the confident warrior from before. Vex Thor's scales were pale, his eyes wide with fear. "Admiral Pierce, please. We need to talk. We need to negotiate." "You should have negotiated before you killed 40,000 civilians," Jacob replied coldly. "We're done talking. You don't understand. The Empire is collapsing. Our fleets are destroyed. Our supplies are cut off. Your forces have taken 20 systems in 3 months. 23 actually," Jacob corrected. "And we're not done." On the ground, Commander Lisa Chen led her Marines through a Zarkan military installation. Her orders were clear: secure the base, capture any intelligence, and protect civilian populations. The Zarkans had expected the humans to be brutal conquerors. Instead, Lisa's troops moved with precision and discipline. "Building clear," one of her sergeants reported. "Found a dozen Zarkan civilians hiding in the basement. They thought we were going to kill them." "Get them to the safe zone," Lisa ordered. "Make sure they have food and water. And find a translator. Tell them we're only here for the military targets." This pattern repeated across every world the humans took. Soldiers expected execution. Civilians expected slavery. Instead, humans offered medical care, food, and protection. Zarkan propaganda had painted humans as monsters. Reality was very different. Prince Zarketh sat in his chambers in the Imperial Palace, reading reports from the front lines. His father, Emperor Thaxul, had assured him the humans would be crushed quickly. Instead, the Empire was being dismantled piece by piece. What troubled Zarketh most wasn't the military defeats. It was what came after. He read an account from a Zarkan soldier who had been captured. The human treatment of prisoners was surprisingly good. Medical care for wounded. Decent food. No torture or abuse. The soldier had expected to die. Instead, he was being sent home after signing a parole agreement not to fight again. "They fight with honor," Zarketh whispered to himself. "We massacred their young, and they still treat our soldiers with dignity." His advisor entered the room. "Your Highness, more bad news. The Third Fleet has surrendered. The humans offered them honorable terms, and they accepted." "How many fleets do we have left?" Zarketh asked. 2. Maybe 3 if we count the Home Defense Force. "Your Highness, we cannot win this war." Back on Earth, President Victoria Lang sat across from her intelligence chief. "Tell me about the Council." "They're terrified, Madam President. Our intelligence operatives have intercepted communications. The Council knew about every Zarkan plan to expand into human space. They approved it behind closed doors. They thought if the Zarkans were busy with us, they'd leave other species alone." Victoria felt her anger rising. "So they sacrificed us to protect themselves." "Yes, ma'am." 5 council members were directly involved, including High Arbitrator Quintala. "Make sure every species in the galaxy knows this," Victoria ordered. "Let them see what their precious council really is." The information spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Species that had trusted the Galactic Council began to question everything. Protests erupted on council member worlds. How many other deals had been made in secret? How many other species had been sacrificed? 5 major species quietly withdrew their support from the Zarkans. Trade agreements were cancelled. Supply shipments stopped. The Zarkan Empire found itself completely isolated. Admiral Jacob Pierce brought his fleet to the edge of the Zarkan home system. The planet below was the heart of an empire that spanned dozens of worlds. It was also home to 9 billion Zarkan civilians. Pierce studied his orders carefully. He could bombard the military installations. He could destroy the orbital defense platforms. But President Lang had been very clear: no civilian casualties. "Send a message to the planet," Pierce ordered. "Tell them we're offering terms. Complete surrender. War crimes trials for those responsible for New Portland. Full reparations to human victims. Demilitarization of the Empire. Accept these terms and not one civilian will be harmed. Refuse and we will take them by force. In the Imperial Palace, Emperor Thaxul read the human demands and laughed. They're bluffing. They won't destroy a planet. These soft mammals don't have the stomach for it. Prince Zarketh wasn't so sure. He had read the reports. He had seen the evidence. The humans fought with honor, but they also fought to win. Father, perhaps we should consider their terms. Never. Thaxul roared. I am emperor of the greatest military power in this sector. I will not surrender to primitive mammals. General Nathan Cross prepared the bombardment plan. It was surgical, designed to hit only military targets. The collateral damage estimates were remarkably low. But he hesitated before giving the final authorization. He had served humanity for 40 years. He had never wanted to be remembered as the general who destroyed a planet, even partially. He didn't have to make that choice. Prince Zarketh made it for him. The prince had spent weeks watching his father refuse reason. He had seen the empire crumble because of pride and stubbornness. He had read about New Portland, about the children who died screaming. And he realized his father was willing to let billions more die rather than admit defeat. At midnight in the Imperial Palace, Prince Zarketh entered his father's chambers with the palace guard behind him. Father, I'm sorry. But this ends now. Emperor Thaxul was arrested by his own son. The prince took the throne and immediately contacted Admiral Pierce. I accept your terms. All of them. Let's end this war. The signing ceremony took place on neutral ground, an old trading station halfway between human and Zarkan space. Admiral Jacob Pierce stood on one side of the long table. Prince Zarketh, now Emperor Zarketh, stood on the other. Between them lay the treaty that would reshape the galaxy. Ambassador Claire Morrison read the terms aloud. The Zarkan Empire admits full responsibility for the unprovoked attack on New Portland and other human colonies. The Empire will pay reparations totaling 5 trillion credits over the next 20 years. All Zarkan military forces will be reduced to defensive levels only. Ships capable of planetary bombardment will be dismantled. Zarketh signed his name. His hand trembled slightly, but he didn't hesitate. It is done. The war had lasted 8 months. By galactic standards, it was barely a skirmish. But the consequences would last for generations. General Nathan Cross reviewed the casualty reports one last time. 2.3 million Zarkan military personnel had died. 40,000 human military personnel had been killed in action. And after New Portland, not a single civilian had died on either side. That was intentional. Humanity had proven they could wage war with precision and restraint. President Victoria Lang prepared for her return to the Galactic Council. She hadn't set foot in those chambers since Claire had walked out 8 months ago. Now she was going back, but not as a supplicant. As an equal. The council chamber was packed. Every species had sent representatives. They all wanted to see what humanity would demand. High Arbitrator Quintala sat in her elevated chair, trying to maintain dignity, but everyone could see the fear in her compound eyes. Victoria walked to the center platform, the same spot where Claire had stood when the council had dismissed the deaths of 40,000 humans. She didn't speak immediately. She let the silence stretch until it became uncomfortable. 8 months ago, Victoria finally said, this council told us that the massacre of our people was a border dispute. You told us you couldn't intervene. You told us to negotiate peacefully with the species that had murdered our children. She paused, looking at each council member. What you didn't tell us was that you knew. You knew the Zarkans were planning to expand into human space. You approved it in secret. You sacrificed human lives to keep the Zarkans busy so they wouldn't threaten you. The chamber erupted in noise. Delegates shouted denials and accusations. Quintala slammed her gavel down repeatedly. Victoria waited for silence. We have the communications, the secret meetings, the votes, all of it. And every species in the galaxy now has access to this information. You can deny it if you want, but the evidence speaks for itself. What do you want? Quintala asked quietly. The fight had gone out of her. "Justice," Victoria replied. "Real justice. The kind you should have given us in the first place." She activated a holographic display. Humanity proposes the Accord of Accountability. First, the Council will undergo complete reform. No more secret meetings. No more backroom deals. All votes will be public and transparent. Second, any species accused of attacking civilians will face mandatory investigation. Third, the Council will establish a rapid response force to protect member species from aggression. "And who will lead this force?" asked a delegate from the Prothean Assembly. "We will," Victoria said simply. "For the next 50 years, humanity will provide the primary military force for Council operations. We will protect peaceful species from aggressors. We will ensure the rules are followed. And we will make certain what happened to us never happens to anyone else." "You want to be the galaxy's military?" Quintala asked. "No," Victoria corrected. "We want to be the galaxy's protectors. There's a difference. We don't want an empire. We don't want to rule anyone. But we will never again trust others to defend us or those too weak to defend themselves." The vote took 3 hours. In the end, the Accord of Accountability passed with overwhelming support. 47 species voted in favor. Only 3 opposed, including what remained of the Zarkan Empire. Quintala resigned her position as High Arbitrator that same day. Captain Daniel Hayes stood on the Bridge of the Vengeance, watching a new human colony being established. This one was in a system the Zarkans had tried to claim. Now it was protected by a full human fleet. No one would threaten these colonists. Not ever again. Lieutenant Sophie Grant stood beside him. "Do you think it will last, sir? The peace?" "Maybe," Daniel replied. "But if it doesn't, they know what will happen. They know what humans are capable of when we're pushed." 3 new species requested mutual defense pacts with humanity in the first week after the treaty signing. By the end of the month, that number had grown to 15. Smaller species that had lived in fear of aggressive neighbors suddenly had hope. If they allied with humans, they would be protected. Admiral Jacob Pierce gave a speech at the new Fleet Academy on Earth. Hundreds of young officers sat in the audience, eager to serve. "We didn't want this war," he told them. "We tried every peaceful option. But when peace failed, we showed the galaxy who we really are. Not conquerors. Not monsters. But protectors." He paused, looking at the young faces before him. "Some species will resent us. They'll say we're too powerful, too dangerous. Let them. We know what we are. We are the line that will not be crossed. We are the shield for those who cannot defend themselves. And we are the lesson the galaxy needed to learn." The new colonies grew. The fleets patrolled. And humanity took its place not as rulers of the galaxy, but as its guardians. They had been pushed across a line, and in crossing it, they had redrawn the boundaries of galactic civilization. In the ruins of New Portland, a memorial was built. 40,000 names were carved into black stone. And beneath them, a simple message: "They tried to break us. Instead, they made us stronger." The galaxy had learned its lesson. Humans were peaceful until you crossed the line. And if you crossed that line, they would remind you why they had survived every war in their history to reach the stars. Not through cruelty or conquest, but through strength, unity, and an unwavering commitment to justice. The age of human patience had ended. The age of human protection had begun.